Thank you all. Now we will open it up to questions.
So a technical question to begin with.
Can you start by saying who you want to direct it to so we can get the mics?
I guess we can start
ACLU
probably with,
Boston.
I was going to say just Lilian who can probably answer these questions for us unless. Hi, Kimberly Bookman with Channel 7 out of Boston. So I'm curious, when you said that what was the reason that they gave you for detaining you? You said that there was something about a deportation issue. I know we have covered a lot of similar situations, and I'm sorry that you've gone through what you have. We've covered a lot of other families who have gone through similar situations. And what they've said, ICE always says as their comment back when we say, why was this person detained and can you give us rationale? They always say, we don't just detain someone for going through legal process to, like you were doing. We do it because there was some kind of outstanding or open warrant, and you mentioned something about deportation. So can you explain to us what the actual reason was that they arrested?
So we're going to mystify?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Lilian has had an order of removal since 2002 when she was 15 years old, when her father lost his asylum bid. That order of removal is the precise thing that she was addressing through this process that the government created, which allows people who have final orders of removal, who have been living their lives in the United States but are married to U.S. citizens, to follow these procedures to come out of the shadows and eventually apply for their permanent residency. So the fact that she has that order is no justification for detaining her. That detention was completely arbitrary because she was taking steps to address that exact order.
Can you talk about how the release came about? What effect did the public outcry down here have to do with that? Why did they let her go?
Well, I can't speak to why ICE let her go. There's been a tremendous legal effort, a tremendous community effort. I think it's been made clear that this is, we don't regard this as lawful, we don't regard this as humane. And I'm glad that ICE listened to that in some respect and released Lilian. But again, this is a detention that never should have happened. And no one, not Lilian and not the others who are going through this in a similar situation, should be made to endure this and to live with this kind of uncertainty.
So what's different about this? What about the ladies that are in there for 3 months? Why, you dealt with ICE up in Boston before. What happened here? Why is she different than all the other women that were in the jail with her?
Well, there's so many different stories in that facility, as some of Lilian's comments reveal. Why was Lilian detained? It goes to the arbitrariness and the
Why was she released?
Well,
We know why she was detained, but I mean, is it because the congressman wrote? Is it because the ladies in South County put the GoFundMe together? I just don't understand why this turned around so quickly. And there's all these other cases that she's talking about. There's something exceptional about this, isn't there?
If I could just add to the significant point that Adriana made in terms of the arbitrary nature, one of the things that she had first started out and she had indicated was that there was a release. I mentioned there was a bunch of different motions that were filed. The ACLU, as you know, they filed a petition for writ of habeas corpus. That's pending. When I got hired, one of the first things I filed was called a I-246. It's a stay. It's a stay of removal. That's filed specifically with ICE in Burlington. That was a voluminous package that was put together, and it documented a lot of the equities, her background information, and I'm putting that out there because you asked what's different about her case. Every case, I suppose, is different, but the equities here for her were over the top. The package that I put out was at least 3 or 4 inches thick. In addition to filing the stay, I also filed a brief with that. And so I spoke with Lewis yesterday. I got the call, and he got a call. He had spoken to Lilian, and Lilian had said that she was moved and she was in Burlington. Precise. After I spoke with Lewis, I called Burlington. I was able to reach her assigned officer. Each detainee has an assigned officer that deals specifically with them. And I spoke with him, and he told me that they had granted the I-246, which is a stay, which was filed on the 30th of January, the very same day. There was a visual outside my office downtown that was filed directly. And so he said that the release was in conjunction with the stay. There's also the stay that was filed at the BIA. There's also the stay that the ACLU was successful in getting on behalf of Lilian as well at federal court. And so this is far from a random type thing. There was a tremendous effort, a combining of efforts by a lot of different people here, okay? The ACLU, our offices, the community, the congressional offices, sure, they weighed in also. And so I don't know that we can necessarily, well, you know what? They have a,
I want to move on. Arbitrary is the word.
exactly, that's the point
It's
I
as
wanted
simple
to
as
make.
that.
Lewis, when we asked you the last
Before-
month,
I'm sorry, are there new people who want to ask questions?
I do want to, yeah. Can you, you mentioned something about how you want to work to adjust her status.
Sure.
Are you going to, what does that mean? Can she still work toward getting citizenship now?
Of course she can. She can
And
still
what are
work.
the, I mean,
Of course
how
she can.
feasible is that,
Sure.
given what's going on right now?
Well, it's as feasible as it is for any other individual, and this is the whole thing that Adriana was pointing to. She was following the ordinary and the logical steps and the chain of steps that she was supposed to follow in order to adjust her status. She went through the marriage interview. It was approved. The next step was to follow up by filing a different application, which we're going to pursue immediately. But for the fact that she was incarcerated abruptly and unexpectedly, that would have been filed. And so that's what she's going to do. She has to, it's a process. And obviously it's better to pursue that process if you're on the street as opposed to being incarcerated. A lot of individuals pursue that process on the street, not being incarcerated. And so that's where we're at right now. That's to adjust her status so she can be with her family. That's what we're going to pursue. And there are hopefully more remedies available for her at federal court, and that's what the ACLU is going to do as well, pursue that.
When you say adjust her status, does that mean?
Residence, get her green card. Correct,
Get her
yes,
green card.
sure.
She went by herself to Johnson Immigration Office.
I'll let
They went with a lawyer, or just by themselves. Fueron solo al sistema de migración,
Que si fueron solos o yeah.
a Johnson.
Fuimos solos.
¿Y algún abogado le dio algún término legal para si iban a migración? ¿Algún consejo legal?
So,
Any legal advice before you went to Immigration Johnson?
so we did. We went to the immigration in Johnson by ourselves because our attorney had a scheduling conflict, and she said to us, you know what, you have a legitimate marriage. There should be no reason why immigration should detain you because according to the administration, we're only after priority cases, and you're not a priority. She goes, you don't have a criminal record, you don't have this, you're a legitimate marriage. Anything that they're going to ask is only going to pertain to your marriage, and by in paper it is, that's what it is, because that's what we are. So she said, I don't see an issue of like, if you want to go by yourself, you can go by yourself, I can go with you, but they're just going to ask you about the marriage. That's all she said.
If I could give a little bit of national context here. So President Obama, when he failed to pass comprehensive immigration reform, passed priorities for deportation. And so most of the people that were, going to these appointments, etc., were not priorities of deportation. They weren't felons, they weren't criminals, or all these categories. So for a while, we weren't seeing this. Now, we have no idea what their priorities are. Obviously, a family of 4, a woman who has been here for 27 years and knows no other home, apparently was a priority for them. That's what's different. And there is no rhyme or reason to this, Bill, what you were asking. In some cases, having the community outpouring that Lilian had could hurt somebody in there. In others, maybe there's no, the only thing that we can do is express the authentic indignation of the rights being taken away of our family members and of our neighbors. And not leave that arbitrary discretion that the government is putting now in a vacuum to stand for itself, because it's not fair.
Can I ask about the transport almost to New Hampshire? I heard about this online, and I wasn't sure what the details on that were, but I hear it was in violation of a judge's order. She was put on a transport and almost brought to New Hampshire.
President?
So the day after Judge Wolf issued an order stating that Lilian could not be moved out of Massachusetts, she was put in a van, and we learned that she was being moved, and in fact she was taken to New Hampshire with the apparent intent to transfer her to the Stratford County Jail, which is another facility used by ICE. That transport was turned around because apparently the government realized that it was in violation of the court order, and she was returned to the Suffolk County Jail. And I think that episode is just one slice that shows what people like Lilian endure, the daily pressure that they endure in detention, the uncertainty of not knowing each day what will happen to you, where you will be taken, and what is going on with your case and what's going on with your life.
So how long was that? Was it a couple hours, or?
How long was she out of the state?
Well, how long? Yeah, I was just wondering.
An hour and a half?
And the process, is it
Or
like?
2 hours, 2.5 hours.
And is the process one where you're shackled and put in a transport van?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Paz, do you think that had anything to do with the release? Their direct violation of the judge's order had anything to do with them releasing her?
I can't speculate about that.
Steve, just a couple technical questions, legal questions. So the order removal is in 2002. Is that normal to have this length of time without resolve to that order of removal? Or is there anything preliminarily, logistically, legally that was going on?
And you knew that was open, right? That was what you're trying to resolve.
Is there a normal pattern for reconciling an outstanding order of removal for a young person at the age of 15?
I can't say there's a normal pattern. I can say there are many people in our communities who live their lives here with final orders of removal hanging over them. For people married to U.S. citizens and otherwise eligible, the government had created a process which was exactly what Lilian and some other folks around the country tried to follow. And as has been mentioned, Lilian appeared for this one part of the process, an interview to confirm the marital relationship. So the notice that she was given told them to bring things that would confirm their relationship, documents, pictures.
Was that much of a gap of any formality in discourse with immigration from that time in 2002 until the time that they went in to confirm the marriage certification matters?
So there was no contact with immigration in this case between then and when she began applying for immigration benefits in 2016.
What happened to her father in 2002 when he was denied? Is he in the country or?
We're not going to address the situation of the rest of her family. Just let's stay focused on the land.
Okay, and lastly, the argument that you'll make now to keep her here, is it uniquely different in any way? Is there a technical legal argument in the new application to keep her here that would be different than the process that she's already engaged in?
She's going to follow the same process that probably thousands of other individuals that are in her situation have pursued. And I'm not just speaking about individuals who are not under a final order, because obviously you can pursue adjustment of status not being under a final order. But her applications that she filed to pursue adjustment of status, she indicated, it's called an I-130, she indicated they knew. When she filed that back in 2016 or 2017, she knew, they knew. USCIS, DHS knew that she was a final order. They approved it, and so obviously there's a procedure in place for that. So they were random and they were arbitrary in their behavior and in their conduct. Just like they were arbitrary and random in their behavior where there was a disconnect because apparently ICE in Burlington didn't communicate with ICE at Suffolk County and weren't aware that she was on her way to New Hampshire until the ACLU perhaps called the U.S. Attorney's Office and I followed up the call.
All right, what I'd like to do, because of the time...
Can I just ask one more question?
You can ask one more question, and then people will stick around. If you
Okay.
still have more questions, they'll be happy to stick
Specifically,
around.
thanks. Yeah, you can. Thank you. It's for you, Louis. Thank you. You know, your wife talked a lot about how difficult the last month has been in prison for her. You talked a little bit about facing Valentine's Day without her. But can you tell us about the last month for you raising 2 children on your own, one income, one person working, just what the day-to-day was like, not knowing what would become of this situation, how much longer she would be gone, if she would come back at all?
It's definitely not easy. We always had a routine. You know, we would get them ready in the morning. I would go drop them off at school. Usually be in school by 8:15. Now, my daughter doesn't go to school till probably 9, 8:30. It's not a fixed schedule, I guess you could say now. When I get home, when I'm working, I usually get home by the time I pick them up at 10 at night. Before they used to be in bed at 8:30 p.m. Now they're going to bed 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock. Just depends on when I get home and get them in bed, get them ready to go. So I know it's very tough for me to balance my job, watching over them as a single parent, and then trying to also explain to our daughter that mommy's working, because that's all I could really say, and trying to address how emotional our daughter gets. But it hasn't been easy financially as well. I've had to do other things to try to save money in some ends, to kind of balance my financial state right now.
And what was like your fear? I mean, would she not come home that you would...
The emotional roller coaster we've been going through the past almost month, it's very hard. Because sometimes I would call her, something would happen, I would get in touch with Mom or Jana and tell them what's going on. You know, sometimes things would happen, and if I would find out, it was through Lilian. You know, and then I would just communicate that with them. But it's been an emotional roller coaster. Hasn't been easy.